Oh, hello, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we're doing the Sunday streaming edition. Well, tomorrow, for those of you watching live, and if not, this won't make any sense unless you're doing the time warp, but tomorrow is in fact Labor Day. And so I thought it would be interesting to do a show about songs that have to do with hard work, with being screwed over by the man or organized labor, all these things. And I noticed a trend among these sorts of songs. Most of them are very unhappy. Most of them are very grim and miserable. And that got me thinking, as we sometimes do on this show, the picture looks a lot sharper than yesterday. I have no idea why, but hey, someone must have been, taking care of business and working overtime. That's one of the songs that actually defies the trend. Taking care of business sort of makes work sound fun. But most of them in that genre don't. So that made me think every holiday sort of has songs that surround it. And as I've said before, if you're a mediocre songwriter who can't sort of churn out the hits on a daily basis, try to at least get one or two songs that has to do with some sort of occasion. Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day. I mean, I suppose that could be any old love song, but hey, why do you think people write love songs? And short of that, doing songs about locations are perennial. Sweet Home Chicago, New York State of Mind, I Love LA, Lights Out London, the list goes on. Beverly Hills Cop. That's instrumental. It's not even called that. Anyway, so it got me thinking. You've got certain songs that have to do with occasions that are very spiritual and reverential and liturgical. I mean, look at the great pieces of music surrounding Easter, for example. Probably the most well-known is the Matthew Passion of Bach, and I highly recommend Wilhelm Mengelberg's recording of that. It doesn't need to be Easter for you to listen to that. Christmas songs, of course, come in all different shapes or sizes. There are the melancholic and wistful, like Jimmy Webb's wonderful Whatever Happened to Christmas. There are the jolly ones, just think of Burl Ives singing Have a Holly Jolly Christmas. There are all sorts because, Christmas is a big day, so there are many. With Halloween, it's spooky stuff, but usually funny and, family friendly. Even though BBC banned Monster Mash when it came out because they thought it was moribund and promoted the occult. Ironically, Michael Jackson had to put a similar warning on his video for Thriller, which has subsequently become a Halloween favorite because it's all good and fun. And then there's sort of patriotic songs for various occasions. All nations have them. Some are about memorializing soldiers, others are about celebrating victories or independence days or days when a national leader of great importance had a heroic achievement. But when you look at Labor Day, I don't know if there are many specific songs about it, but there are certainly songs that have to do with the subject. And I've written a few of them down. I would say one of the best is 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. It's all about the hard life of, selling your soul to the company store. Hazel Dickens' Black Lung, all about coal mining. Not the most fun stuff. Working Man Blues by Merle Haggard. Again, not the most happy stuff. Working for the Man, Roy Orbison. Chain Gang by Sam Cooke, a very pleasant song, but about an experience that most people wouldn't really find enjoyable. Lots by Lead Belly, usually the agricultural industry, things like Pick a Bale of Cotton, Cotton Fields, Take This Hammer. They Might Be Giants, a very, very clever band, kind of in that Warren Zevon tradition. They did one called Minimum Wage. Rush, pre-Neil Peart, so the lyrics weren't as libertarian, did their song Working Man. Factory by Bruce Springsteen. In fact, a lot of stuff by Bruce Springsteen, and of course, a lot of stuff by Pete Seeger. And I've been going through these lists that I've come up with, and I've been trying to think, is there anything I'm forgetting? But other than Buckman Turner Overdrive's Taking Care of Business, most of these songs are about the negative aspect of work, the fact that you're working too hard or that you don't like your boss, they're being paid too little. And it's obvious why these songs became well known, because these are nearly universal experiences for most people. who aren't mentioned in John Fogerty's Fortunate Son, at least. And he actually said something funny about that. People still don't know what the song is about, which I find hard to believe. But for those who don't know what Fortunate Son was about, it's about people that are born into wealth and high status positions. They were able to avoid getting drafted into the war in Vietnam. And those who weren't the fortunate sons had to go off and die in the jungle. So it's a song that might be overplayed and overused, but even so, a lot of people still forget the meaning. So I wanted to talk about something else today, because a lot of these songs, while very good songs, I wanted to talk about something more pleasant and uplifting to celebrate the whole Labor Day weekend. And it got me to think about Jay Leno, because obviously he's not a musician, he's a comedian, but it's all in the world of entertainment. And the world of entertainment, at least when it's done at a professional level, there are lots of great amateur entertainers. Most professionals begin as amateurs at one point in their life. But in the realm of professional entertainment, it's people that are making a living by trying to make other people feel something, or occasionally even think something. Most of the time, entertainment is about making people happy. Sometimes it's about making them contemplate and meditate over a subject. Sometimes it's about arousing the emotions of passion and sorrow. Think of elegies. So, entertainment is about all sorts of arousal of emotions. And I think that while it's definitely in some ways easier than working in a coal mine or selling your soul to the company store, there is also a dark side of the industry in two respects. One, as the great philosopher Bon Scott said, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. So that's one aspect of it. For every entertainer that's been successful, there are many more who are struggling even worse than someone who, let's say, has a stable job in a coal mine. Then there's the other aspect of it, which is that in many, many facets of the entertainment industry, there's an entire invisible army, not that one, but there's an entire invisible army of real people that are working to make the entertainment happen. The people who engineer the sound, the people who make the equipment to engineer the sound, the people who make the lights, the people who operate the lights, the people who make sure that the streams go out and the satellite feeds go out, the people who drive the trucks, the people who cook the food, the people who build the stages, the people who build the buildings in which the stages are housed. All of these people are part of this invisible army in the entertainment industry, and you never really hear about them. But without them, most of the forms of highly technologized entertainment that we enjoy today wouldn't get to you. It's the reason, for instance, why, seeing Kiss is a big, elaborate production requiring a literal army, the other Kiss army of the people building the stuff, and people who are just doing it for the fun of it, don't even know how to close the window so that the lighting doesn't come in the wrong way. But hey, I don't have a lighting guy, and that's sort of the point. So on this Labor Day weekend, I wanted to salute both the artists, the entertainers, the content creators, and the invisible army of hardworking people that make the entertainment at its best. These are the people that are chasing perfection. These are the people that are making sure that the good looks great and that the great has an everlasting memory in the eyes of the audience because of just how wonderful the presentation is. And when I was thinking about all of this, I got to think, like I was saying a second ago, about Jay Leno. Jay Leno is someone who may be unique in his industry, lived and breathed alongside this invisible army of people who made the entertainment industry work. He was someone who once took a pay cut from NBC because he didn't want the people working on his show to get laid off by the network. I cannot think of anyone else who would do that. I'm sure there are, but not many, particularly in the big Hollywood days when Hollywood was unchallenged by the more cost-effective, more nimble online new media. So he did that. He made sure that at all times his show was run by unions, which meant more job security and generally better payment for the people around him. He never really fired anyone. He had the same crew on day one as he did on his final day. And a lot of people think badly of Jay Leno, because when the whole Conan thing happened, they thought he didn't want to give up his show. It was NBC. They orchestrated something really stupid. He and Conan were caught in the middle, but he was asked on several interviews at the time, and he's been asked on several interviews since, why didn't you just go to another network? And he said, well, because this is my family. And he wasn't talking about the executives. He was talking about the crew. He was talking about the girls who did the makeup, the writers who wrote the scripts, the cameramen, the lighting crew, all of these people. He didn't want to lose them. He didn't want to put them out of work. And because they were union, they could probably find other gigs, but he didn't want instability in their lives. He talked about how I think upwards of 60 kids were born among the crew of his show between day one and his final show. He talked about how he was always happy when members of the crew could afford to buy a house local to the studio in an area that's now really unaffordable, because he paid the crew well. And I just think that for all of the people who like to make fun of Jay Leno because they think, oh, his comedy is too safe, well, it takes a lot of talent. No comedy is easy, but to be a good, clean comic is actually much harder in many respects than being a funny comic who goes blue, who uses obscene language and subject matter. So first of all, that's not true. He's very talented at what he does. But the thing, oh, he's just selfish, he's this and that. He's actually very selfless. He does work hard, and he doesn't really need to work at this point in his life, but he still does, though, doing stand-up almost every night and doing his car show on the internet. But again, a lot of what he did throughout his life, once he reached that certain level of success, it was about helping the people around him, not through acts of charity, but through giving them an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, which hardly anyone does anymore. And even at the time, everyone, especially in Hollywood, was very cutthroat. And one of the reasons that Hollywood actually became something more than just a piratical town of cutthroats is because of the unions that dealt with people in the entertainment industry. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. Hold your horses right there. I hate to interrupt the stream, but this is what happens when we do it live, as Bill O'Reilly might say. Okie dokie. Lights, camera, satisfaction. Okay, see, that's what happens when you don't have a crew. And so this is making my point for me. So where was I? All of the things Jay Leno did. So he wasn't doing this as an act of charity. So the idea of Hollywood. Okay, so Hollywood has become very unpopular, and there's good reason for it. The executives are selfish. The top level content creators are putting out a lot of things that just don't resonate with regular people. And if you lose the masses, you're not really doing good entertainment. I talked about Wagner the other day. Wagner created high quality artistic entertainment for the masses. He democratized entertainment by bringing high quality music to people, irrespective of their station in life. And everyone in the opera house that he designed had an equally good seat. He got rid of the elitist boxes. And Hollywood is supposed to do that. And they've lost their way. But what made it great? Well, a lot of the unions that organized the people in these invisible armies, the people in post-production, the grips, the drivers, the caterers, the engineers, the carpenters, all of these different people were given stable and well-paying jobs, and as a result they were happier. When you used to, in the old days, meet someone who was driving a truck for a studio, someone who was working in the prop shop, someone who was in carpentry, someone who was doing audio post-production, someone who was repairing the cameras, they were all very pleasant people. And it's because they knew that two things were true. they had acquired a level of skill that meant they had something to offer to the world. And two, because they were organized in a union, they were able to create job stability and decent wages for themselves, which gave them a level of comfort, which makes them happier. And happier people always do better jobs than miserable people. That's just the way the world works. Now, I'm not glazing unions because unions have a lot of problems as well. There is corruption in the unions, just like there's corruption in corporations, just like there's corruption in politics. Unions can sometimes drive their own people out of work in the long term by not bargaining correctly, by looking at issues in a short-term way rather than a long-term way. So yeah, unions are imperfect the same way, and they can have terrible leadership the same way everyone can have terrible leadership. Frank Zappa's very candid on that issue, and he's had some trouble with unions. When people lose their sense of logic, when people put legalism before logic and before wisdom, you'll corrupt any organization, any institution, and you'll end up corrupting the human condition itself. And now, though, when we look at Hollywood, it's fallen apart because neither the unions nor the executives really know how to cope with new technology, which is why I think there ought to be in both entertainment corporations and in unions technology geeks, technology sort of eggheads all over the place so they can anticipate things in the same way that the music industry so foolishly didn't anticipate Napster. And once it came along, rather than partner with it, rather than buy it, they decided to sue it. Suing the competition out of oblivion just doesn't work. It's a short-term solution and it always backfires. And so, yeah, the idea of entertainment is changing. Music, how it is made, how it is recorded, how it is delivered is different. The same is true with visual entertainment, whether it's a series that we used to call a TV show, but now it's not TV anymore, whether it's a feature film, which isn't on film anymore and hasn't been for a while. All of these things are changing. And given that, I still think that the unions in the entertainment industry, if they are to get their act together, they have something important to do. And this is standing up for free speech. Because free speech right now is one of our biggest, the lack of free speech, rather, censorship is one of the biggest threats to the human condition, to artistic freedom, to creative ingenuity, to economic stability, to economic growth, and to social safety. Because when you have censorship, you stifle creativity. And when you stifle creativity, all of the economic forces that combine to make the entertainment industry, they shrivel up and die. When you have people that are unable to get jobs, unable even to start businesses, sometimes unable to even acquire a residence because of censorship and because of blacklisting and because of retaliation and because of so-called cancel culture, you're not just having a world that is built on discrimination, but you'll eventually have a world where the economy will contract. Because when people aren't able to start businesses and work and have money to spend, the economy suffers. And when you have people that are afraid to be honest, the quality of work suffers. And now I'm not just talking about the creative industries, I'm talking about every industry. If an airline pilot is afraid to tell the truth because of cancel culture, people will die because planes fall out of the sky. If a scientist or a doctor is unable to tell the truth about a medicine that isn't working well or a surgery that's unnecessary, people will die. If an architect or a construction firm isn't able to tell the truth about a building project, people will get hurt. People's living conditions will go down, and innovation will be stifled. If people are afraid to be creative, nothing new will get invented. We'll become a society of middle management, of nobodies, a society of people getting worse and worse at replicating rather than better and better at innovating. And so my call to the unions, not just in the creative industries, but every union, stand up for one battle where your voice can really be heard, because the censorship is coming from the corporations, it's coming from the left-wing politicians, it's coming from the right-wing politicians, it's coming from the so-called middle-of-the-road politicians, it's coming from all aspects of power, of the power structure. And if the unions really want to get back into the good graces of the public, because they have to admit that in many cases they've fallen out of the good graces of the public, they're seen as corrupt, sometimes they're even seen as irrelevant. If they want to shift this reputation and regain the goodwill they used to have and that they once totally deserved, stand up for free speech. Stand up for the free speech of your members. Encourage people to join you and promise them that you will, without cessation, without bias, and without fear of favor, stand up for their free speech. Become the vanguards of an economic renaissance that can only happen when people are free to disagree, free to be creative, free to be so called offensive. All of those things are implicit in this beautiful thing we call freedom, this beautiful thing that is under attack, this beautiful maiden that's being raped left and right by the forces of evil. Stand up for fairness, stand up for openness, for freedom, for all that is right, and watch the economy grow. Watch your membership grow. Watch society become more peaceful, because when people can say a dirty word, they are less likely to do a dirty deed. Everything gets better when you have freedom. And this is one area where the unions can really, like I said, reinvent themselves, make a name for themselves again, and truly do great things for great people, all while making the world safer, more prosperous, more innovative, and overall a better place to be. So that, on this amateur entertainment analysis show, is my Labor Day message from me to you. Remember, freedom is worth everything. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time, if they let me. Take care.